One step I hate the most about using black walnut is you need to pore fill it if you want to have a nice level even finish, even for if you're doing French polishing. So as much as I hate it, still got to do it. Right now this is sanded to 220 grit. I am going to use a wash coat of just 1 pound cut shellac to just kind of seal the wood. And I also like to think that the sawdust or little particles of walnut from sanding, those kind of fit in all the crevices, and then if you use shellac as a wash coat, it kind of locks those in, so it's like a pore filling in a sense, and it's walnut dust. So you're kind of just using what you've sanded, fills in the cracks a little bit, seal it with shellac, and then for the main pore filling, I just use this color tone. This was ash originally, ash colored, and I just put a bunch of black dye in it to make it that color that I wanted. So that's all you do. Sometimes this will dry out, and then just get some water and put it in, and then mix it up until it's a nice kind of a spackle consistency. So I'm gonna do the wash coat here. And I just have a little cut off of a rag. Since you're only doing a wash coat, it's not really a thick layer per se. So you don't have to do, I wouldn't go drawing designs with the shellac, but it's okay if the lines don't overlap and you have to go back a little bit. This is a good point too, because just like if you were to use mineral spirits or naphtha or denatured alcohol to kind of clean the surface or hide any imperfections, this kind of serves as the same purpose. So, you know, after I apply the wash coat and then see some areas that need work, then it's a good opportunity, easy time to fix it. Before I did this, a step I did is I took some mineral spirits. I did wipe it down, just getting oils, because I have been like leaning on it. For some reason, I was just like thinking, I was just like leaning like this, thinking, and I put more oil on it, but I guess my arms aren't that oily. But anyway, so while I'm doing this, I'll blabber about the steps. So you have the bare wood that you sanded at 220 grit, if that's what you're doing as your final sanding grit. Then I would wipe that down with a damp paper towel or rag with water, and that'll raise the grain just a little bit and get that peach fuzz. And then I would just kind of very lightly scuff that with like a 320. You don't want to be putting any new grooves or cuts into the wood. Once I do that, I would wipe it down with a dry rag or something, or you could do mineral spirits, denatured alcohol, and then let that kind of gas off. And then what would I do next? I would then do the wash coat that like I'm doing now to seal the wood and any of the dust that could be kind of like a natural pore filler. But dang, I hate pore filling. It's always such a mess. When I first got into building instruments in like 2009, actually it was touring the Martin Guitar Factory, and I remember one of the workstations that really left an imprint in my mind was the pore filling assembly line, and I was like, oh my god, that is horrible. They had like gloves up to their elbows, and they're just covered in this whatever they use for pore filling. Anyway, it doesn't get like that over here, luckily, but this is a pretty basic approach. If you don't have a product like this, the color tone grain filler, you could use just like spackle from a hardware store and then just put whatever stains you want. But again, always test things out. Another bit of advice, if you don't want so there's stain in this, and this is gonna basically stain the wood unless you do this step and add like a wash coat of shellac. So it kind of depends on what overall vibe you're going for. So in this case, I don't want the whole instrument to be darker or black. I just want a dark tinted pore filler to be in the grains of the wood. So if you wanted the instrument to be dark colored anyway, then you could skip this wash coat step and you're good to go. So I'm gonna close. If you're using a jar of shellac like this, always close the jar, otherwise it's going to gas off and basically become more hyper concentrated and throw off the dilution. So I always wear a glove. I'm just kind of mixing the goop up, nothing fancy. Now, unlike when you're applying a wash coat of shellac where you kind of go with the grain, pore filling, I go kind of perpendicular to the grain. I just feel like you get a better filling of the grain, the pores in that way. So I'll just kind of put a bunch of goop on my finger. It's not very complicated. And then rub all over. I just use my fingers. Some people have those like squeegee, like index card things, or people use old credit cards. Those things freak me out because I feel like it could just possibly invite scratches, I guess, inadvertently. I know, like, theoretically it's not super likely, but I'd rather reduce the chance of that happening. So my fingernails are pretty short anyway, so, and then I'm just using the palm or the pads of my fingers, and I just feel like it's a gentler approach. As you can see, very complicated. Just kind of smearing it around. Hold it up, I don't know if you can really see with the camera. So that's the open grain. You can kind of see, maybe. And then obviously this is excessive, but if you kind of look through the thicker parts, you can kind of see the actual pores and how they have the grain filler in the pores. So I'll do that for this, the whole back here. What I would then do, the next step is you kind of let it air dry. It dries really quick. And then I'll get like a wet, damp paper towel and I'll kind of wipe it, any excess stuff, and then sand it with 320, very light scuff sanding to get any excess pore filler off. And then go over with a wet paper towel again, just kind of clean it. You don't want the wet paper towel or rag to be too wet because then you're just going to be re-diluting the pore filler, and then you're kind of just going to be chasing your tail indefinitely. So now let's say you do this whole stage and then you see spots that you've missed. Just go back to that little spot and just kind of hyper focus on it until you get it to be the same as the rest of the instrument you're working on. And then let's say you do that, you think you have it all, and then you want to seal it all in. I would then go with the shellac and just kind of then go with the grain to seal in the pore filler. And even then, it's super easy to address any low spots or pores that you might have missed. I wouldn't even sand the shellac back. I would just put pore filler right on top of that, and then kind of repeat that process where it's needed. So that's kind of the quick nuts and bolts of pore filling. Again, it's with any open pored wood. So like walnuts, mahogany, ash are the main culprits that come to mind. You know, some of the exotic tropical woods. And the cool thing, I think, if you do want to mix your own color, like you can get like an ash or the spackle, and then you can just, like, let's say you want to have a red colored pore filler. Like let's say you're doing Paduic or Bloodwood or something. Well, you can just put red dye and and kind of mix the colors as you need. So there's a lot of wiggle room for whatever your personal preferences. So I would recommend experiment, have fun, try different things, and go give it a shot.